The twin suns of Xylar Prime burned pale and distant in the sky, casting long, jagged shadows over the abandoned cityscape. Cracked metal towers, remnants of a once thriving human colony, leaned like broken teeth against the horizon. Dust and ash drifted in the thin air, carrying the acrid smell of scorched steel and burnt ozone. Somewhere in the distance, the faint hum of alien patrols echoed, a constant reminder that humanity was no longer the dominant species here. Kalen Ride crouched atop a crumbling observation tower, his dark eyes scanning the streets below. At 24, Kalen was lean, wiry, and painfully aware of every scar that told the story of survival. His family had fallen victim to the Xyran Dominion, a race of bioengineered predators who saw humans as nothing more than vermin. Yet, despite the fear that tightened his chest, a flicker of defiance burned in his gaze. He adjusted the strap of his pulse rifle, feeling the familiar weight grounding him. Every time he raised it, Kalen remembered the child. The image of Lyra, no older than 10, her pale face twisted in terror, her small hands reaching for him before the Xyrans struck. That single moment had changed everything. Her death was broadcast across the Dominion's network, meant to humiliate humanity, to break their spirit. Instead, it ignited something fierce in him, a quiet, smoldering rage that demanded action. Kalen's communicator beeped softly. He pressed a button, and the holographic interface flickered to life. "Ride," said a gruff, familiar voice. Commander Eric's face appeared, stern and lined with the weight of responsibility. "Intel confirms Xyran movements near Sector Delta. They are searching for survivors." Kalen's jaw tightened. "I saw them. They are methodical, calculated. This isn't just hunting, it's terror, Commander. They want to send a message." "That message," Eric said quietly, "won't go unanswered. Humanity isn't done." Kalen shut off the comm. His mind raced. Every abandoned street, every hollow building, was a potential trap. The Dominion didn't fight fair, and humans were scattered, few, and fractured. Yet in the midst of despair, Kalen felt the spark of strategy forming. He had spent years scavenging tech, studying alien patterns, and now he was ready to turn their cruelty against them. He moved silently along the rooftops, the city beneath him a labyrinth of twisted metal and shattered glass. Occasionally, the wind carried faint echoes, childlike laughter, a memory he wished he could forget. Kalen clenched his fists, forcing himself to focus. Survival wasn't just about staying alive, it was about making them pay. Below, in the city square, he saw movement. Xyran scouts, sleek and jagged, with limbs that ended in sharp, clawed appendages, patrolled methodically. They didn't notice the human perched above. Kalen inhaled sharply. His pulse quickened, not from fear, but anticipation. Every step he took, every calculated pause, was a preparation for the storm he intended to unleash. He recalled Lyra's laughter again, her small voice calling out before the broadcast cut to black. The memory was a blade pressed against his conscience. He had doubted, feared, and almost ran from the truth of humanity's fragility. But now, that child's death was a rallying cry, a spark that could ignite an inferno of human resolve. Kalen ducked into a narrow alley, the walls etched with the faded graffiti of human colonists long gone. He paused, listening. The Dominion's patrols were close, yet unaware. His mind, always restless, calculated distances, angles, and potential traps. Every alleyway, every overturned vehicle, every flickering neon sign was part of the battlefield now. And then he whispered to himself, almost as a promise, "For Lyra, for humanity, they will pay." As the suns dipped lower, casting the city in a surreal crimson glow, Kalen Ride became something more than a survivor. He became a reckoning. And somewhere in the vast expanse of the Dominion's reach, the first tremors of fear began to stay. The war for revenge, for justice, and for the very dignity of humanity had begun. Kalen moved through the skeletal remains of Xyla Prime's central district, each step echoing softly against the empty streets. The air was thick with the metallic tang of rust and the faint, lingering smoke of burnt-out vehicles. He kept low, crouching behind the twisted framework of a collapsed transport tower, eyes scanning every shadow. Even in the silence, the Dominion's presence felt like a suffocating weight, their patrols methodical and relentless. Every time a pair of elongated, segmented limbs passed in the distance, Kalen's pulse quickened, but not with fear. He welcomed the tension. It reminded him he was alive, reminded him that revenge was no longer a distant thought, but an approaching storm. He reached a ruined plaza, its center dominated by a toppled monument to humanity's colonization efforts. Moss and alien fungus crept across the cracked metal, a visual testament to the Dominion's slow, invasive domination. Hey, Kalen was not alone. From the shadows emerged Jaraven, a tech-savvy scout with a wiry frame and eyes that had seen too much, yet still sparkled with mischief. "You're early," she whispered, crouching beside him. "The patrols aren't supposed to sweep this sector for another hour." Kalen shook his head. "I want to see them before they see us." His tone was sharp, but beneath it lay the simmering anger that had driven him this far. Jorah studied him briefly, reading the determination and grief etched on his face. She knew what he had witnessed, the broadcast that had seared into every human's consciousness the image of Lyra's lifeless eyes, and she knew that grief had transformed into something more dangerous, a calculated, unyielding purpose. "All right," she said finally, adjusting the sensors on her wrist-mounted scanner. "If we're going to survive this, we need to know their patterns. The Dominion doesn't just hunt. They anticipate. They want us to panic." Kalen nodded. Panic was a luxury humans could no longer afford. Every decision, every movement, had to be deliberate. The pair moved silently, slipping between broken walls and shattered vehicles, until they reached the edge of the district. Here, the city fell away into jagged canyons of metal and concrete. From this vantage point, Kalen could see the patrols converging on the sector, their forms glinting under the dying suns. The Zyrans were precise, almost surgical in their approach, and Kalen's stomach twisted, not from fear, but from understanding the challenge before them. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting to send a message, to maintain dominance. Kalen crouched, his eyes narrowing as he watched one scout trip a hidden alarm device. The subtle beep was a warning that they had been noticed. The Dominion's intelligence was unlike anything humans had faced before, but Kalen's mind raced. Years of scavenging tech, observing alien behaviors, and studying tactical anomalies had led him to this point. Every misstep, every failed escape, had become a building block in the architecture of his plan. "We can't take them head-on," Kalen murmured, scanning the patrol's route. "But we can turn their own strategies against them." Jorah glanced at him, skeptical but trusting. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Kalen pointed to the shadows of a collapsed transit hub. "We'll lure them into the narrow corridors there. Their size, their limbs, they'll be trapped. One wrong move and they'll collide with each other. We can isolate them, disable them, and gather intel. We take their tech, learn their weaknesses. Every strike we make will be surgical, precise. Not a war yet, just the first bite." Jorah allowed a faint smile. "I like the bite. But this is dangerous, Kalen. If we fail, there's no backup. No evacuation. Just us." Kalen's gaze softened for a brief moment, and he thought of Lyra again. He could almost hear her small voice urging him forward. "We can't fail," he whispered. "Not after what they did." Night began to fall, though on Xyla Prime, the twin suns created a permanent twilight that made shadows long and deceptive. Kalen and Jorah slipped into position, silent as predators themselves, watching the Zyran patrol converge. Their strategy relied on perfect timing, precise movements, and the element of surprise. The air was electric, charged with anticipation, and Kalen could feel every heartbeat echoing like a drumbeat in his ears. The first contact came quickly. A Zyran scout turned a corner too sharply, colliding with another patrol unit as Kalen had predicted. Sparks flew as alien armor clashed against alien armor, and Kalen felt a surge of grim satisfaction. He and Jorah moved in, disabling alarms, extracting data modules, and leaving false signals to confuse the remaining patrols. Each move was calculated, precise, a reflection of human ingenuity and resilience. By the time the patrol regrouped, Kalen and Jara were long gone, fading into the shadows of the crumbling city. The Dominion had been outmaneuvered, if only briefly, and Kalen felt the first flicker of hope in weeks. Humanity had struck back, even in the smallest way, and it felt intoxicating. As they disappeared into the winding streets, Kalen whispered a promise again, not to Jara, not to the patrols, but to the memory that had started this journey. For Lyra, for every human who has suffered, we will rise. And they will know that humanity does not kneel. The city remained silent, but beneath the rubble and ruin, a quiet pulse of defiance had begun to spread. The first sparks of rebellion had been lit. The following days were a blur of shadows, whispered commands, and the constant hum of alien surveillance. Kalen and Jara moved with the efficiency of hunters, slipping through the ruined sectors of Xylar Prime while gathering intelligence on the Xiran Dominion. Every intercepted transmission, every disabled patrol, was another step toward understanding the enemy. Yet, the deeper Kalen delved into the Dominion's operations, the more he realized the enormity of the challenge. They weren't just hunters, they were engineers of terror, architects of fear who thrived on human despair. In the safety of a hidden underground tunnel, Kalen spread out a holographic map, the faint blue glow illuminating his determined face. Jara crouched beside him, fingers flying over the controls. Sector Theta shows a concentration of energy cores, she said. If we can sabotage them, we can cripple their patrols in this quadrant for at least 2 cycles. That gives us a window. Kalen's jaw tightened. Every tactical decision carried the weight of human lives. Then we hit them fast, precise, and without mercy. One slip, and we're nothing more than statistics on their broadcast. His voice was hard, but underneath it lay the flicker of something fragile. Hope. He imagined the child, Lyra, and all the faces lost to Dominion cruelty. Each memory hardened his resolve. Humans had endured countless atrocities, but this was personal. Their plan required more than just stealth. Kalen knew that alone, they would be outmatched, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. He needed allies, humans who had survived the initial purges and who understood the cost of inaction. Over the next 2 days, he visited hidden encampments scattered across the city, bringing together a small but determined band of survivors, scavengers, former soldiers, engineers, and even a few children who had learned to hide rather than fight. Among them was Myratal, a former security officer whose tactical brilliance rivaled Kalen's. She had witnessed the Dominion's cruelty firsthand and carried a quiet, burning rage. When Kalen explained the sabotage plan, her eyes glimmered with approval. "This isn't just revenge," she said. "It's the first step toward reclaiming what's ours. Let's make them regret underestimating humans." As night fell, the group moved into position. The abandoned energy facility was a labyrinth of corroded pipes and shattered machinery, the faint glow of alien tech pulsating like a heartbeat. Kalen led them through the shadows, careful to avoid detection. Every sound, the hiss of venting gas, the creak of metal underfoot, was amplified in the silence. He felt the tension in his chest, a tight coil of anticipation. Humans were small, fragile, and limited in number, but their ingenuity, resilience, and unpredictability made them dangerous. When they reached the central control hub, Kalen paused, surveying the alien technology. The Xyrans had designed the facility with efficiency and intimidation in mind, but they had overlooked one thing: human creativity. With a few well-placed modifications, a few hack signals, the energy grid would collapse in a cascade, cutting off patrols across multiple sectors. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Jara whispered from her position, "Patrol approaching from the north corridor. We have minutes, not hours." Kalen nodded. "Positions. Focus. Move only when I signal." He felt his pulse quicken, not from fear, but from the thrill of control in a situation where chaos could easily reign. The team split, each member taking cover behind structural supports and shattered consoles. Kalen's eyes scanned the corridors, calculating angles, distances, and timing. Every detail mattered. The first patrol entered, a sleek, predatory unit with sensors that glowed faintly in the dim light. Kalen held his breath as Jara manipulated the control panel, sending false readings to the patrol's interface. Confused, the Zurans hesitated, their predatory instincts clashing with the anomaly. At Kalen's signal, the team moved. Explosions echoed, sparks flew, and the Dominion units were trapped, unable to escape the collapsing corridors. By the time the dust settled, the facility was in chaos. The energy cores were compromised, patrols were temporarily neutralized, and Kalen allowed himself a rare, fleeting smile. Humanity had struck a blow, not just for survival, but for dignity. Yet, as the group regrouped in the shadows, Kalen felt a creeping unease. The Dominion would retaliate. They always did. Every victory came at a cost, and he knew this was only the beginning. There were still countless sectors to reclaim, countless lives to avenge. Myra placed a hand on his shoulder. "We've made them feel human resistance," she said softly. "They know now that we're not just prey." Kalen nodded, but his thoughts drifted back to Lyra, to the faces of children lost and homes destroyed. "It's not enough," he murmured. "Not yet. But it will be." As they melted back into the labyrinthine tunnels beneath Xyla Prime, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the city in shades of crimson and shadow. Humanity had begun to fight back, and in the darkness, a quiet, dangerous hope began to grow. The Dominion would come, but Kalen and his band of survivors would be ready. And somewhere in the depths of his mind, he knew that when the time came, humanity would make them pay for every life they had taken. The alarm had been faint at first, a subtle vibration through the ground beneath Xyla Prime, but Kalen recognized it immediately. The Dominion had detected the sabotage. Their response was precise, brutal, and inevitable. From the tunnels below the city, Kalen and his band of survivors could hear the distant roar of engines and the clatter of armored patrols. The hum of alien machinery grew into a pulse of menace that shook the very walls of their hideout. Kalen rose from the shadows, his dark eyes scanning the dimly lit tunnels. Jorah was already at the control console, fingers flying across the interface to analyze incoming Dominion movement. "They are converging from 3 sectors simultaneously," she said, tension lacing her voice. "This isn't a patrol, it's a full-scale counterattack." Myra Tal stepped beside Kalen, her expression calm, but her voice hard. "They are testing us, Kalen. They want to see if humans can survive. If we falter, they'll crush every hidden enclave." Kalen nodded. The weight of leadership pressed down on him, heavier than the pulse rifle on his back. Every decision mattered. One misstep could cost lives. And yet, beneath the pressure, he felt the familiar surge of defiance. Humanity had been cornered before, and each time, they had risen stronger. "Positions," Kalen commanded. "We'll draw them into the old industrial sector. The corridors, the debris, they'll be trapped by their own size. Every advantage counts." The survivors moved like shadows through the tunnels, hearts pounding, minds focused. Kalen led the way, calculating angles, timing, and routes. He remembered the lesson that Lyra's death had burned into him. Survival alone was not enough. Every step, every strike, had to carry purpose. Humans had to prove that they were more than prey. They reached the industrial sector, a maze of rusted machinery, overturned vehicles, and narrow passageways. The air was thick with dust and the faint tang of burning circuits. Kalen positioned his team at strategic points, using the environment as both shield and weapon. When the Dominion forces arrived, they moved with terrifying precision. Their forms glinted under the dim light, segmented limbs extending and retracting with predatory grace. The first encounter was sudden, a pair of patrols rounding a corner, sensors glowing faintly as they detected movement. Kalen waited, heartbeat steady, and then signaled. Traps detonated, sending sparks and debris flying. The Dominion units hesitated, their coordination disrupted by the narrow corridors and unexpected obstacles. Kalen's team struck quickly, disabling units, extracting vital data modules, and retreating before reinforcements could arrive. Every maneuver was calculated, every strike deliberate. Yet, as the battle raged, Kalen felt the pull of doubt. Could they really hold back the Dominion? Every victory seemed temporary, every success a prelude to harsher retaliation. He thought of the humans still hiding, the children who would never understand why their world had become a battlefield. Could he carry the weight of responsibility for all of them? A sudden explosion rocked the corridor, throwing Kalen off balance. Debris rained down, and a scream echoed from the shadows. Jorah's voice cut through the chaos. Cornered. We're being flanked. Kalen's mind raced. Split into pairs. Take the side tunnels. Focus on mobility. He moved like lightning, pulling survivors from danger, firing with precision, and forcing the Dominion to overextend. The corridor became a deadly maze, every turn a trap, every narrow passage a human advantage. Amidst the chaos, Kalen's eyes caught a glimpse of something familiar. A young boy, no older than Lyra, trapped beneath rubble. Instinct surged through him. He rushed forward, ignoring the fire and sparks, lifting the debris with sheer strength born of rage and desperation. The boy's eyes were wide with fear, mirroring the countless faces Kalen had sworn to protect. "It's okay," Kalen murmured. "You're safe now." The Dominion units paused, sensing the humans' audacity. For a moment, time seemed suspended. Kalen felt the weight of every lost life, every injustice, every act of cruelty inflicted upon humanity. Then he raised his pulse rifle, aiming with precision, and fired. Sparks danced across alien armor as another unit fell, temporarily halting the advance. By the time the battle subsided, the industrial sector was a scarred battlefield. Kalen and his team had survived, but not without cost. Injuries, exhaustion, and the realization that the Dominion would return heavier and more prepared weighed on every survivor. Yet in their eyes burned the same defiance Kalen felt in his chest. Humanity had struck back and survived. Myra approached, placing a hand on Kalen's shoulder. "We did it," she said softly. "We're alive. That counts for something." Kalen nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He looked toward the horizon, toward the distant glow of the twin suns. Humanity had survived another day, but the war was far from over. Somewhere, in the vast expanse of the Dominion's reach, plans were already forming, plans to crush the defiance they had just witnessed. Kalen clenched his fists. He thought of Lyra, of every human child, every lost home, every scarred city. And he knew one thing with absolute certainty: humanity would not kneel. They would rise, fight, and make the Dominion pay for every atrocity. The war for survival had entered a new phase. Kalen Ride and his band of survivors had proven they could resist. But the true test was still to come, and the fire that Lyra's death had ignited in his soul burned brighter than ever. Humanity was awakening, and the Dominion would soon learn that underestimating humans came at the gravest cost. The glow of Xylar Prime's twin suns was fading, casting long shadows over the city's scarred streets. Kalen Ride stood at the edge of a collapsed overpass, overlooking the Dominion's energy refinery in the distance. It was a massive structure, bristling with alien machinery and heavily patrolled. To any ordinary human, it would have been impossible. But Kalen had never been ordinary. Every plan, every strategy, every scar etched into his body had led him here. Humanity was no longer just surviving, they were striking back. Jorah crouched beside him, adjusting a sensor array that picked up patrol movements and structural weaknesses. "If we hit the main energy cause here," she said, "we could cripple Dominion operations across two adjacent sectors. But it's risky. They'll anticipate some sort of retaliation." Kalen's gaze hardened. "Risk is inevitable. If we don't act, they'll hunt us to extinction. Every second we wait, they grow stronger, more confident. Today, we show them humans don't just endure, they fight." Myra Tal joined them, her eyes scanning the refinery. "We need precision. No unnecessary exposure. Focus on the cause, gather intel, and pull back. Lives matter more than vengeance." Kalen nodded, silently acknowledging the wisdom in her words. Strategy without restraint was reckless, and humanity had already lost too much. As the team advanced through the crumbling industrial outskirts, Kalen's mind raced. Every shadow could hide Dominion scouts. Every distant hum of machinery could conceal a trap. Yet, amid the tension, he felt the steady pulse of determination. Humanity had endured worse than this. They had been cornered, hunted, and humiliated, and still they stood. They infiltrated the refinery under the cloak of fading daylight, slipping between massive conduits and towering machinery. Kalen led with measured caution, signaling stops, checking corners, and scanning for sensors. The Dominion's patrols were efficient, but predictable. Years of observation had taught Kalen how to anticipate their movements, and he exploited every pattern, every mechanical rhythm. At the heart of the facility, the energy cause pulsed with a bright, unnatural glow, thrumming like the heartbeat of the Dominion itself. Kalen's team moved into position, deploying microdrones to hack control systems and disable security protocols. The hum of alien machinery was deafening, yet Kalen's focus remained unbroken. Every second counted. Every delay increased the risk of detection. Suddenly, an alarm blared. A hidden sensor had triggered. Dominion units poured into the central chamber, sleek and deadly, their segmented limbs glinting in the dim light. Kalen didn't flinch. Engage. Focus on mobility. Trap them in the corridor junctions, he shouted. The team executed with precision, using the refinery's machinery as cover, luring the alien units into narrow passages where their size became a liability. Sparks flew, alien armor clashed with improvised human weapons, and every move demonstrated not just survival, but intelligence, creativity, and ferocity. Humans were underestimated at every turn, and Kalen intended to exploit that. Through the chaos, Kalen's thoughts drifted briefly to Lyra and every innocent life the Dominion had destroyed. That image fueled him, lending clarity to every tactical decision. One by one, patrol units were disabled or trapped, giving the team precious minutes to reach the energy cause. Jorah initiated the final sequence, sending destabilizing pulses into the cause. The machinery groaned, lights flickered, and a deep vibration ran through the refinery. Kalen signaled the retreat. Move. Now. As they exited through maintenance tunnels, explosions erupted behind them, the refinery shaking violently as the energy cause destabilized. Alarms screamed, Dominion forces scattered, and Kalen allowed himself a brief surge of satisfaction. Humanity had struck a decisive blow, one that would ripple across the Dominion's controlled sectors. Outside, Kalen watched the smoke and fire rise against the twilight sky. The refinery was in chaos, and Dominion Command would be scrambling to assess the damage. The victory was small in the grand scheme, but for humans, it was monumental. They had taken the initiative, shown ingenuity, and demonstrated that survival alone was not their limit. Myra clapped Kalen on the shoulder, a rare smile on her face. "You did well," she said. "We did well." Kalen's eyes remained on the distant glow of the refinery, thoughts heavy with what lay ahead. The Dominion would retaliate, harder and faster. But humanity had awakened. They had tasted the power of resistance, and Kalen knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere deep in the Dominion's ranks, alarms would continue to blare, commanders would argue, and panic would spread. And somewhere, humans across Xylar Prime would take hope from this victory. They would remember the child who had sparked it all, and know that their defiance carried the weight of justice, vengeance, and survival. Kalen Wright tightened his grip on his rifle. Humanity had struck, and they were only getting started. The war was far from over, but the fire had been lit, and nothing in the Dominion could extinguish it. The horizon of Xylar Prime burned crimson as the twin suns rose once more, casting an eerie light over the scarred landscape. Kalen Wright stood atop a ridge overlooking the Dominion's Central Command fortress, its spires glinting like black teeth against the sky. The structure pulsed with energy, a beacon of tyranny and cruelty. Inside, the commanders who had sanctioned the death of Lyra and countless others would soon face the reckoning humanity had been preparing for. Kalen's team, battle-hardened and resolute, gathered behind him. Each face told a story of loss, survival, and relentless defiance. Jorah adjusted her senses, scanning the fortress for weak points, while Myratal double-checked weapons and ammunition. "This is it," Kalen said, his voice steady. "We've learned their patterns, exploited their weaknesses, and we've survived every challenge they've thrown at us. Today, humanity strikes, not just for survival, but for justice." The team moved like shadows, slipping through abandoned corridors, old service tunnels, and collapsed overpasses that led closer to the fortress. The Dominion's patrols were heavy, but predictable. Every pattern Kalen had studied, every anomaly he had memorized, guided their approach. They were humans, yes, but they were cunning, adaptive, and fueled by a fire the Dominion could never comprehend. Inside the fortress, alarms blared as the human assault began. Kalen led his team through narrow conduits, disabling security drones and luring guards into traps. Every engagement was swift, precise, and devastating. The Dominion was powerful, yes, but they were rigid, overconfident, and unprepared for humans who fought not just with weapons but with intellect and relentless will. As they approached the central command chamber, Kalen's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from anticipation. Beyond the doors were the commanders, the architects of human suffering. And beyond that, the truth he had long suppressed, the cost of humanity's survival weighed on every step. The chamber doors slid open with a hiss, revealing the Ziran commanders. They were massive, imposing, bioengineered figures with armor that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Yet when they saw Kalen and his team, something flickered across their predatory faces. Surprise, disbelief, even caution. Humans had made it this far. Kalen stepped forward, rifle raised, eyes locked on the leader. For every life you've stolen, every child you've harmed, every city you've burned, he said, voice echoing, humanity has survived. Today, you pay. The battle was brief but brutal. Humans moved with precision, striking at the Ziran weaknesses they had exploited for months. Explosions rocked the chamber, sparks and debris flying as the bioengineered commanders fell one by one. Kalen's heart pounded, not from adrenaline, but from the culmination of years of pain, loss, and preparation. When the dust settled, silence reigned. The commanders were gone, their fortress crippled, and the human survivors stood victorious amidst the ruins. Kalen lowered his rifle, feeling the weight of the moment. Humanity had not just survived. They had delivered justice, exacted revenge, and proved that no cruelty, no matter how sophisticated, could break their spirit. Jorah approached, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "We did it," she whispered. "They can't ignore this. Humanity has returned the favor." Kalen's eyes drifted to the horizon, imagining Lyra and all the lives lost. The pain remained, a constant reminder of why they had fought. Yet now, that pain had purpose. Humanity had awakened, and the Dominion's reign of terror was shaken to its core. Myratal placed a hand on Kalen's shoulder. "This is more than survival," she said softly. "This is a statement. Humanity doesn't bow. Humanity doesn't kneel. Humanity fights relentlessly." Kalen nodded, a rare smile touching his face. "For Lyra, for every child, for every human who refused to be prey, we've proven who we are." As the suns climbed higher, casting light over the ruined fortress, Kalen felt a quiet pride. Humanity had been pushed to the edge, hunted and humiliated, but they had endured, adapted, and triumphed. The universe had witnessed the fury of a species that would not yield. Somewhere beyond Xylar Prime, the Dominion would reassess, rethink, and fear the humans they had once dismissed. But Kalen and his team did not dwell on future battles. Today, victory was theirs. Humanity had struck a blow that would echo across the stars, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the universe, humans fight back, and they do not forgive. Kalen lifted his gaze to the skies, feeling the wind on his face and the weight of countless lives behind him. "We've begun a new chapter," he whispered, "and humanity will never stop."